Welcome back to another episode of Health X Audio. My name is Theodora, and I am one of your co-hosts.
And I'm Adrienne, your other co-host, and today we're joined by our editor, Saleha, and our guest for today's topic, Zoha Anjum, a student here at the University of Toronto studying dentistry and public and global health. Like HealthX Visuals, she runs an informative Instagram page at Zoha Dentistry, shedding light on various dental and oral conditions and to document her journey through pre-dentistry. She also provides career advice and information about public health at Public Health Connect, also on Instagram.
So at our podcast, we like to do a couple of warm-up questions just to get everyone in the mood. What has been your favorite memory so far at U of T?
That's a great question because it really made me sit down and think about what has been the best part of, pursuing the dream career that I've been working towards for the past few years. I think finally getting to hold the handpiece in my hand and drilling my first tooth ever was one of my most memorable and favorite moments. Looking back, I remember being so nervous about the whole experience, not having that fine motor control, thinking that I'll never be able to do a good job at it. And then 6 months later, I have like much better control of my own hands, and I'm able to do different like cavity preparations that require precision of up to 1 to 2 millimeters. So we're working in a very small space. So I think the whole journey for me has been my favorite part too. And I every time when I'm sort of stuck, if I know that I'm messing something up, and I see my morale going down, I like to remind myself that remember that first time you held this drill in your hand and you had no idea what you were doing with it? Well, today is much different, but not that different either, except I'm still in the learning stage, and the only way forward is to just keep on getting better at it.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. I can imagine being so nervous about drilling a tooth. Oh, so relating to teeth and eating, our favorite question to ask here is, what's your favorite food truck?
My favorite food truck?
Mm-hmm.
Is it weird if I just said that I've never had food from a food truck?
That is not weird, but we're offended.
Even during my undergrad, I used to have my tutorials in Sydney Smith Cafe, and there were so many food trucks on St. George Street, and I always managed to have my lunch with me that my mom used to pack for me every morning. And I know, like, being in Toronto, you think that you're exposed to so many different cuisines and you're like eating out every single day. And I think I ate out more after I graduated than I did in the 4 years of undergrad that I was at U of T. So I think anything with fries would be nice, but I don't have like a particular favorite food truck at the moment. Maybe that's something I should explore in the next 3 years.
Yeah, you better.
Yeah, it's actually really surprising because like you've been at U of T for quite a while and like you've never tried.
Yeah, no. I don't know why, but that's just how it is.
I guess it's harder now also because of the pandemic, so you don't get to eat out as much. But yeah, I feel like, especially myself, I was eating out during the first few years of university, but now I'm literally just at home. Everything's online. But yeah, I guess it is what it is. So what led you to dentistry at U of T?
I wasn't really thinking about becoming a dentist throughout my undergraduate studies. So I did my undergrad in physiology and health and disease at U of T St. George campus. Did a lot of research in Lyme disease and high-fat diet and how they interact together in mice models. And throughout my research, I just wasn't happy. Like I thought it was cool. Like we work with mice. We have so many different techniques and methods, but something was missing.
And around that time, I was also doing some part-time work with the Youth Health Action Network, which is a youth-led organization that is run by Toronto Public Health staff. And under that role, I did a lot of health promotion work, learned about social determinants of health, public health overall, and figured that um, I think I like public health more because of how it helps me have an impact on another person's life, and I don't have to wait 30 years for that impact to show. So I really liked that aspect. So that's how I ended up in public health. During my public health courses, I took I actually completed a project on access to oral health care for seniors in long-term care in Hamilton, which is a city just an hour away from Toronto. And I learned a lot about the burden of oral disease within the city and how so many folks just end up in emergency because they just don't have a dentist that they can go to, or they don't have money to go and get the treatment done. And that puts a further burden on your healthcare system as well, because that person's occupying a bed throughout the triage until you figure out what is really wrong with them, and also taking up resources in addition to time. I ended up doing really well on that project, and I told my professor that she really liked my policy analysis and said, I think you did a really good job. Let me connect you to this public health dentist who is a TA for another course that I teach. And I thought, okay, cool. At that point, I was finishing up my master's too, and I was really thinking about what I want to do afterwards. So I thought, why not? So I ended up meeting with that public health dentist, and we talked for an hour about what a public health dentist does. And I remember towards the end of the conversation, she said, Zoha, I think you should really consider shadowing a couple of dentists and see if the clinical aspect of dentistry is something you really enjoy, because she thought that I could be like a competent dentist / public health professional. And I like to remember that conversation as something that she saw it in me before I was able to even see it in myself. After that, I ended up telling folks around me, said, hey, I'm like considering dentistry, thinking of writing my dental school admissions test and looking into what the requirements are to make sure I have all the prerequisites. So at this point, I was already halfway through my master's program, and clock is ticking because I really wanted to not take too long of a gap, because once you've been out of school for some time, it's really hard to get back into that, discipline that you need to get through school. I shadowed 2 dentists. One of them was based in Toronto, downtown, and the other one was based on the east end of the GTA. The kind of cases we saw were so different at the 2 different locations. The one in downtown, people were coming for their regular annual checkup, coming in for cosmetic reasons, like they don't like the color of their teeth, or just want to get cleaning done and their checkup by a doctor to make sure that everything's fine. But on the east end of the city, this dentist that I was shadowing, I was seeing people coming in with pain, with pus oozing out of their tooth because of an infection that hasn't been addressed for the longest time. So I thought that was so interesting that like there's a spectrum of different complications that you can have. Like you can either be someone who's providing aesthetic or cosmetic care where people are like choosing to get certain procedures done, but on the other hand, you're providing emergency care to an extent where people are exposed to life-threatening conditions as well. And then obviously I was in public health, so I started thinking like, why are we seeing such different kind of cases at 2 different locations that are literally half an hour drive from each other? And really looking at social determinants of health, what kind of community is residing around like each clinic, what kind of employment do people or patients have that are coming to these clinics. I thought that was very interesting, and I started asking those questions around that time as well. So really enjoyed like the spectrum of treatment or practice you can have, and I thought that it's really cool how patient walks in with pain and you do a procedure and patient walks out happy. So again, it's the impact that drove me into public health and then drove me to dentistry as well. And I think if it wasn't for that, my thirst for impact or wanting to do something that changes someone's life, I wouldn't have been here at all.
That's an amazing story. I know this may be kind of early to ask, but when you do become a full-fledged dentist, do you plan on working with populations that would need more access to like emergency tooth care, or would you be more interested in working with people who like have the choice to do like more cosmetic based health?
I think both are very important because they're addressing different aspects of health. So when we're talking about emergency care where the person's walking in with like very bad tooth pain, infection, we're addressing more of the physical part of health, which is, the person that infection can literally spread in any part of your other like face. It can get to your neck and block your airway. It can get to your heart, your brain. So addressing more of the physical aspect of health by providing emergency care or care in an emergency setting. But when we talk about like cosmetic reasons or aesthetic dentistry, we're talking more about mental health. So if somebody is walking in with, let's say they tell you that they don't like the color of their teeth or they want to have a nicer smile, to me that's equally important because you are addressing the mental health aspect or the burden that not having the quote perfect smile may have on that person and on their social life, their quality of life. So I think both are equally important. Personally, at this point, I don't think I have enough exposure to both kind of treatments because we're learning very basic stuff right now. So I think it's a little too early for me to decide what kind of procedure or what kind of care I would want to provide. But knowing myself over the past 7 years of post-secondary education, I think I'm more of a generalist who would enjoy doing a mix of different, providing access care to different people with different needs. And obviously, like once you become a dentist, it's not like the end of the road. It's just a beginning of a new chapter. So I'd be happy to see like what other interests emerge over time as well.
I actually never realized that like the cosmetic aspects could be due to like mental health. Like I kind of always thought of it in like a more of a vanity type of thing. Um, so like that's actually a really interesting take that I've never thought of before. So thank you
Yeah,
for that.
yeah, like if a person is coming to me and saying that, hey, I think my breath smells bad, I just think about, well, how many times has this person been in a social setting where they weren't able to express themselves fully because they were afraid that their breath smells bad? Or how many times has this person lost opportunities because of their crooked teeth? Because there is a lot of research showing that the way your smile is, it does affect your employability or whether people are likely to hire you or not. So what impact that has on an individual mentally, I think it's very important to consider as well.